Welcome to our deep dive into how to win friends and influence people. I'm sure you're all looking to get the core wisdom out of this classic by Dale Carnegie,
Yeah.
but without, reading the whole book.
Right.
So today, that's what we're going to do. We're going to uncover those time-tested principles together.
It's amazing how relevant this book is.
Yeah.
I mean, considering it was first published way back in 1937.
Oh, yeah.
It was an instant bestseller,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been translated into, I don't know how many languages.
Oh, countless. Yeah. And it's still helping people, I think, all over the world
For sure.
navigate the complexities of human interaction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is something I think we all struggle with. I
Yeah.
mean, to me, it's so interesting that Carnegie didn't just sort of come up with these principles out of thin air.
Right.
He actually,
Really.
he identified a real need that people had.
And what's really fascinating is that this book actually came out of a pretty extensive study.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was conducted by the University of Chicago and the YMCA,
Ooh.
and they invested 2 years and something like $25,000
Wow. That's a lot.
to figure out what adults were most eager to learn.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was it?
Well,
What did they want to learn?
it turns out
Yeah.
the second most popular thing that adults wanted to learn right after health
Okay.
was this idea of understanding and getting along with other people.
It makes total sense.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So Carnegie sort of stepped in
Yeah.
to fill that gap,
Yeah.
and he started with a course, and then, the book came out of that.
Oh, wow. So the book was almost secondary.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't realize that.
But to make sure that his advice wasn't just, theoretical,
Yeah.
he actually did some pretty serious research. He interviewed incredibly successful people
Oh, really?
from all walks of life.
Okay.
I mean, from inventors like Marconi,
Uh-huh.
Edison,
Oh, wow.
to, figures like Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Oh, wow.
And he even spoke to movie stars like Clark Gable.
Oh, my gosh. What a range.
I know, right?
So fascinating.
Yeah, and so he really did his homework,
Yeah.
pulling in insights from history,
Yeah.
from business, from personal experiences,
Right.
to really sort of build this framework for effective human interaction.
That's amazing.
So in this deep dive, we're going to sort of follow a similar path.
Right.
We're going to explore those core principles, and we'll also touch on some of the
Right.
really fascinating stories and examples
Oh, so
that Carnegie uses to bring them to life.
those are really helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they make it really sticky for me.
Yeah, it's those real-life examples that really make the principles so memorable and applicable, I
Oh,
think.
for sure. Yeah.
So let's start by examining this idea of, laying a solid foundation
Okay.
for any relationship.
Right.
So
So the groundwork.
the groundwork, exactly.
Okay.
It's all about setting the stage for positive interactions.
Yeah. Right.
And Carnegie sort of kicks things off with this principle. That might sound pretty simple,
Yeah.
but it's actually incredibly profound.
What is it?
He says, don't criticize, condemn, or complain.
It's easier said than done, isn't it?
Way easier said than done.
Yeah.
But think about it. How often do we just jump to criticize others,
Oh, all the time.
right, without really fully understanding their perspective?
Oh, yeah.
And Carnegie uses this story of Two Gun Crowley.
Okay.
He was a notorious gangster,
Oh, wow.
to illustrate this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did he do?
Well, Crowley never blamed himself for anything,
Wow.
even when he was facing the electric chair.
That's wild.
Right. It's like he just refused to
Oh.
acknowledge any wrongdoing whatsoever.
Right.
And it really sort of highlights our human tendency
Yeah.
to rationalize our actions and avoid taking responsibility.
It's so true.
Right?
I see that all the time.
We see this all the time, right?
Yeah.
Even in like really high stakes situations,
Oh, yeah.
people often cling to their justifications
Yeah.
rather than, admit any fault.
Right. It's a defense mechanism.
It is.
Yeah.
And Carnegie uses another really compelling example,
Okay.
the Teapot Dome scandal.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of that.
Right.
Yeah. Vague.
So this was a major political scandal
Okay.
back in the 1920s.
Right.
Involving oil reserves and some, shady dealings.
Release with the oil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So Albert B. Fall, who was a cabinet member,
Okay.
he granted this really lucrative oil contract
Okay.
to a friend in exchange for like a hefty loan.
Uh-huh. Classic.
And he even sent in the Marines to like drive off competitors.
Oh, my gosh. I know.
So when the
Oh.
scandal broke,
Right.
Fall just adamantly refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing.
Oh, wow. So he was just like, nope, not me.
Totally.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with me.
Wow.
Yeah. And it illustrates how even those in positions of power
Yeah.
can be so blind
Yeah.
to their own,
Shortcomings.
shortcomings, exactly.
Yeah. It's wild how the ego works, right?
Right. So instead of, jumping to criticism,
Right.
Carnegie suggests that we try to understand the other person's perspective.
That's tough, though.
It is tough.
Yeah.
Especially when you're, feeling like
Yeah.
they've done something wrong.
Right. Yeah. You feel wronged.
Yeah.
You just want to lash out.
Right.
Mm.
But he uses a great story
Okay.
about Abraham Lincoln
Okay.
to illustrate this point.
Okay.
So Lincoln was known for his wisdom
Yeah.
and diplomacy.
Right.
He was
Like the best.
the best
Yeah.
at handling these kinds of situations.
Okay.
So he once faced a situation where General Meade,
Okay.
who was one of his generals,
Uh-huh.
had missed this critical opportunity to potentially end the Civil War early.
Wow.
So Lincoln was deeply disappointed.
Right.
He even drafted this really scathing letter
Yeah.
to Meade,
Right.
but ultimately he chose not to send it.
Oh, wow. That takes restraint.
I know.
Yeah.
Because he realized that criticizing Meade would only make things worse.
Right.
And he understood the importance of empathy
Right.
and considering the other person's perspective,
Yeah.
even when he was dealing with like a major setback.
Oh, yeah. This was a huge setback for the entire country.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just a really powerful example
Yeah.
of leadership and emotional intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this idea of avoiding criticism
Right.
is balanced by another fundamental principle,
Okay.
which is
What is it?
become genuinely interested in other people.
That seems obvious.
It seems obvious.
But I don't think a lot of people actually do it.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
Right.
But what does that mean? Like, what does it look like to be genuinely interested in other people?
I think it's about,
Yeah. Shifting the focus.
shifting the focus exactly
Yeah.
instead of constantly trying to be the center of attention.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is what I think a lot of people do.
I agree.
Yeah.
Especially in this day and age with,
Social media.
social media. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're constantly sort of bombarded
Yeah.
with this message
Right.
that we need to be,
The center of attention.
the center of attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Carnegie's saying, let's shift that
Right.
and focus on genuinely understanding
Right.
the people around us.
Right.
And he argues that that genuine interest
Yeah.
is the key to
Yeah.
building strong and lasting relationships.
Oh, I think that's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that when I make a conscious effort to be interested in what other people have to say,
Right.
conversations are just so much more
Engaging.
engaging, yeah, and rewarding.
Rewarding. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And a genuine smile,
Right.
can be a really powerful way to express that interest.
Oh, yeah.
Carnegie emphasizes
Yeah.
that, a sincere smile
Mm-hmm.
can really improve interactions in all sorts of areas,
Okay.
from, customer service
Yeah.
to personal relationships,
Yeah.
even to your own happiness,
Yeah.
which is interesting, right?
Yeah, it's like it comes full circle, right?
Yeah.
When you're happy and you smile, you make other people happy and they smile.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's actual research that shows,
Oh, really?
yeah,
Okay.
that people who smile more often tend to be more successful in life.
Oh, wow.
And they even tend to raise happier children.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And Carnegie shares this really personal story
Oh,
about
okay.
how he transformed himself from being this grumpy person
Yeah.
to being a much happier one,
Oh, wow.
just by making a conscious effort to smile more often.
Okay.
Yeah. He decided to greet everyone
Yeah.
he encountered with a genuine smile.
Oh, wow.
From his wife to strangers he passed on the street.
Oh, that takes a lot of effort.
It does.
Yeah.
But he found that this simple act had a really profound impact
Okay.
on his relationships
Yeah.
and his overall well-being.
Right.
He even said,
Yeah.
I became a richer man.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to put it.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
It's such a simple thing, right?
Yes.
But it can make such a big difference.
It can.
And I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
Just make a conscious effort to smile more often.
It can't hurt.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And it ties in perfectly with this next principle.
Okay, what is it?
It is, remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language.
Oh, I love that quote.
Right.
It's so true.
It is so true.
Yeah.
But this is one of those that seems so obvious.
Yeah.
But I know so many people, myself included,
Yeah, me too.
who are terrible at remembering names.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those things I beat myself up over.
Me too.
Like, I'll meet someone and have a great conversation,
Mhm.
and then, like, 2 minutes later, I
Yeah.
can't remember their name.
I know.
It's awful.
It's a common struggle.
Yeah.
But Carnegie highlights how crucial it is to actually make the effort
Right.
to remember and use people's names.
Okay.
Yeah, and he shares this story of Jim Farley,
Okay.
who was a political strategist,
Okay.
who was really instrumental in Franklin D. Roosevelt's rise to the presidency.
Okay.
And Farley claimed that he could call something like 50,000 people by their first names.
What? That's insane.
I know.
Yeah,
I can barely remember what I had for breakfast.
I know, right?
But it really shows the power of making that effort.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, like he clearly
Yeah.
prioritized it.
He prioritized it.
Yeah, and it paid off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Carnegie points to Napoleon III as well,
Okay.
who used this very specific technique.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for
And
memorizing names.
Okay.
So if he didn't catch a name clearly,
Yeah.
he'd ask for it again.
Okay.
And if it was unusual,
Yeah.
he'd even ask for the spelling.
Oh, wow.
And then he would repeat the name.
Yeah.
Several times during the conversation.
Okay.
And, consciously link it
Yeah.
to the person's face and appearance.
Oh, that's a good technique. I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Repetition and visualization.
exactly.
Yeah.
Repetition and visualization.
I like it.
Right.
Okay.
So it's just a great example of how
Yeah.
even remembering names takes practice
Right.
and effort,
Yeah.
but the rewards can be significant.
I love the story
Yeah.
that he tells about the cafeteria worker Eunice.
Oh, yeah.
She always has this like scowl on her face.
Yeah, she's always scowling.
Yeah, until a customer noticed her name tag
Yeah.
and decided to, greet her by name.
Right. And her whole demeanor changed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she piled on the ham. She gave him extra lettuce.
What?
I know.
Just from saying her name.
Just from saying her name, she was practically beaming.
That's incredible.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And it shows how such a simple act
Day.
of remembering and using someone's name can instantly make them feel seen
Yeah.
and appreciated.
Yeah, like you've taken the time to
Yeah.
actually remember them.
Exactly.
It's so powerful.
Right.
Yeah,
And it can make such a difference
for sure.
in how they interact with you.
Right. You've set the tone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this sort of idea of acknowledging and valuing others
Right.
leads us to another crucial principle.
Okay, what's that?
Be a good listener.
Mm.
Encourage others to talk about themselves.
Oh, man, this one hits home for me.
Me too.
It's so easy to get caught up in what we want to say.
I know.
Yeah.
Right.
And you just completely forget to listen.
You're not really listening.
Yeah.
You're just waiting for your turn to talk.
That's exactly it. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
so guilty of that.
But Carnegie emphasizes that good listening
Yeah.
is about more than just being quiet,
Okay.
right? It's about actively engaging
Yeah.
with the other person,
Okay.
asking questions,
Right.
and demonstrating genuine interest.
Right. So you're making them feel heard.
Exactly. And he has this sort of humorous story
Okay.
about how he accidentally became known as
Yeah.
like this brilliant conversationalist
Okay.
at a dinner party
Oh, yeah.
simply by listening intently to a botanist
What?
talk about his work.
Oh, my gosh.
And the irony is
Yeah.
that Carnegie barely said a word all evening.
Oh, wow.
It just goes to show
Yeah.
how much people appreciate
Yeah.
being listened to.
It makes you feel important.
It does.
Yeah.
And think about Sigmund Freud,
Okay.
considered one of the greatest listeners
Yeah.
of all time.
Right.
Yeah, he believed that truly listening to his patients was absolutely essential
Yeah.
to understanding their thoughts
Yeah.
and their motivations.
Totally.
So it's a reminder that,
Yeah.
when we listen attentively,
Yeah.
we not only make the other person feel valued,
Yeah.
but we also gain
Yeah.
really valuable insights ourselves.
Right. By listening, you learn.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's so simple.
And let's face it, most people are far more interested
Oh, totally.
in talking about themselves
For sure.
than listening to us talk about ourselves.
That's so true.
Right.
Yeah. Carnegie cites this study by the New York Telephone Company,
Okay.
and they found that the word I
Hmm.
was the most frequently used word in phone conversations.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's like we're wired to talk about ourselves.
Like we're programmed?
We are.
Yeah.
So if we want to make genuine connections,
Right.
we need to break out of that.
Yeah. That self-centeredness.
Self-centeredness, yeah.
Yeah.
And make a conscious effort
Yeah.
to be interested in others.
It's about getting out of your own head
Exactly.
and into theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's about seeing the world through their eyes,
Yeah.
understanding their experiences,
Yeah.
and valuing their perspectives.
Totally.
And when we do that,
Yeah.
we open the door
Yeah.
to authentic connection
Right.
and mutual understanding.
Yeah. I love that. It's so powerful.
It is.
Yeah. And this leads so nicely
Okay.
into the next principle,
What's that?
which is building upon the idea of being a good listener.
Okay.
Talk in terms of the other person's interests.
Now we're putting those listening skills into action.
Right, because you're actually using what you've learned by listening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just sort of hear what someone says.
Right.
We need to understand what truly matters to them.
Right.
Like, what are their passions?
Yeah.
Their goals?
Mm-hmm.
Their fears?
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone's different. Right.
Everybody's different.
Yeah. So you really have to tailor it
You do.
to that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Carnegie even says,
Yeah.
people are 100 times more interested in their own toothache
Oh, yeah.
than they are in a famine in China,
Oh, wow. That's true.
which is kind of harsh,
Yeah. Kind of harsh.
but probably true.
Probably true. Yeah.
Yeah,
Self-preservation and all that.
exactly.
Yeah.
He uses this example of this guy
Okay.
who spent like 4 years trying to sell bread
Okay.
to a hotel manager,
Okay.
and he had no success.
Oh, wow.
Finally, he discovered that the manager was like obsessed with dog shows.
Okay.
So instead of pitching his product,
Right?
he started engaging the manager in conversations about dogs.
Smart.
Right.
Good.
And what do you know?
Yeah.
He landed a huge order,
Oh, wow.
all because he took the time to connect with the manager
Right.
on a personal level
Right. By talking about his dog.
by speaking the language of his interests.
Yeah. It's so key.
Right.
Yeah. It's that common ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it highlights how important it is
Yeah.
to find that common ground,
Right.
even in seemingly unrelated situations.
Right. Because who would think that talking about dogs would lead to selling bread?
Right.
Yeah.
But it's about bridging that gap
Yeah.
between our interests
Right.
and the interests of the people we're trying to connect with.
Right. And that brings us to, I think,
It's like the most powerful principle of all.
So, yeah, what is it?
Make the other person feel important and do it sincerely.
This is at the heart
Yeah.
of everything Carnegie teaches.
Oh, yeah.
It's about recognizing and appreciating
Yeah.
the inherent worth
Yeah.
of every individual.
It's so powerful.
Right. And I want to be clear, this isn't about flattery or manipulation.
Right.
It's about genuine respect and appreciation.
Right. Like actually meaning it.
Meaning it.
Yeah. Not just saying it to get something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Carnegie tells this really remarkable story
Okay.
about an elderly woman who gifted her beautiful Packard car
Wow.
to a young lawyer simply because he showed sincere appreciation for her possessions.
What?
Yeah, the lawyer was visiting her home with his wife,
Okay.
and he took the time to admire her antique furniture and her paisley shawls.
Oh, wow.
And the woman was so touched
Yeah.
by his genuine interest
Yeah.
that she insisted he take her car as a gift. Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And it just shows
Yeah.
how this simple act of kindness and appreciation
Right.
can have such a profound impact.
Especially on someone who maybe feels
Yeah.
overlooked
Overlooked.
or forgotten.
Forgotten, yeah.
Yeah, it must have meant the world to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and remember that businessman
Yeah.
who secured a $90,000 contract simply by complimenting
Yeah.
George Eastman, the founder of Kodak,
Uh-huh.
on his office?
I love that story.
Oh, yeah, it's so good.
So he was waiting to, discuss a potential project
Okay.
with Eastman and an architect.
Uh-huh.
And instead of making small talk,
Right.
he took the time to actually admire the craftsmanship
Yeah.
of the office's woodwork.
Okay.
And Eastman, who had designed the office himself,
Oh, wow.
was so delighted by the compliment
Oh, wow.
that he ended up giving the guy the contract.
Oh, my gosh.
Isn't that great?
That's
It
amazing.
shows the power of
Yeah.
finding something
Yep.
to genuinely
All
compliment.
right. Even something small.
Even something small, yeah.
Yeah.
And making someone feel important.
Right.
Doesn't have to involve grand gestures
Yo.
or expensive gifts.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's as simple as
Yeah.
listening attentively,
Yeah.
remembering their name,
Right.
or acknowledging their efforts.
Right. Those little things go a long way.
They really do.
Yeah.
And it's those little things that can really make a difference.
These first 6 principles that we've talked about,
Yeah.
these really lay the foundation for
They-
everything else.
Yeah.
What we're going to dive into.
Right, they do. Now that we've explored, those foundational principles,
Right.
let's move on to, sort of
Right.
the next set of insights
Right.
from Carnegie.
Okay.
And these really focus on this art of persuasion.
Okay.
Specifically, how to win people to your way of thinking
Okay.
without resorting to manipulation or coercion.
Right. This is where it gets really interesting for me.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, we all want to be able to influence others and get
Yeah.
them to see our point of view.
Yeah.
But how do we do that effectively,
Right.
ethically,
Right.
and in a way that actually builds relationships
Mhm.
rather than, damaging them?
Right. And Carnegie begins this section with this principle that might seem
Okay.
a little counterintuitive at first.
Okay.
He says, the only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it.
I'm a bit of a recovering debater myself.
Okay.
So this one really resonates with me.
Yeah.
I used to love a good argument, but I've learned over time that
Yeah.
more often than not, they just lead to frustration
Right.
and resentment
Yeah.
rather than genuine understanding.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Carnegie argues that when we engage in an argument,
Yeah.
we often end up, more entrenched in our own positions.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you walk away feeling defensive and wounded, even if you win the argument.
Exactly.
You can win the battle but lose the war.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do we avoid those pointless arguments?
Well, Carnegie shares this great story
Okay.
of Patrick J. O'Hare,
Okay.
who was a salesman
Okay.
who completely transformed his career
Okay.
by learning to embrace agreement
Okay.
rather than confrontation.
Okay.
So O'Hare was initially a terrible salesman
Oh.
because he loved to argue.
Okay.
Yeah, he'd contradict potential buyers
Oh, no.
and get into these heated debates about his product.
Okay.
But then he discovered the power of finding common ground.
Oh, okay.
So instead of disagreeing,
Right.
he'd acknowledge the other person's perspective.
Okay.
And he'd say things like, the Who's It is a good truck.
Yeah.
If you buy the Who's It, you'll never make a mistake.
Oh, wow.
Right.
So he almost disarmed them by agreeing with them,
Exactly.
even if he didn't fully agree.
Even if he didn't agree.
Yeah, with their criticisms. It's very clever.
Yeah. So by avoiding those arguments
Right.
and creating this more harmonious atmosphere,
Oh, okay.
he was able to build rapport and trust,
Right.
which ultimately led to more sales.
That's a great reminder that winning an argument
Yeah.
is often less important than winning over the person
Exactly.
which you're
No,
talking to.
Exactly.
Right. And Carnegie actually quotes Ben Franklin,
Yeah.
who famously said, "If you argue and rankle and contradict,
Right.
you may achieve a victory sometimes, but it will be an empty victory because you will never get your opponent's goodwill."
So true.
Wow.
Wise words.
Wise words from Ben Franklin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're not going to argue,
Yeah.
what should we do instead?
Well, Carnegie suggests that we show respect for the other person's opinions.
Okay.
Never say you're wrong.
This one can be tough,
It is tough.
especially when you feel really passionately about something.
Yeah.
But I can see how, telling someone they're wrong is just going to backfire. It's going to backfire.
Yeah.
Right. It immediately puts them on the defensive.
Right.
It shuts down communication.
Yeah.
And it can even, damage the relationship.
Right.
Carnegie shares the story of this man
Okay.
who successfully avoided a heated argument
Okay.
with a tax inspector.
Oh, no.
I know, right?
Those are never fun.
No, simply by expressing admiration for his expertise.
Oh, okay. So he flipped it on him.
He flipped it on him.
Yeah.
So instead of arguing about the tax bill,
Right.
he said things like, I've made a study of taxation myself,
Yeah.
but I've had to get my knowledge from books. You are getting yours from the firing line of experience.
Oh, wow.
Right.
That's such a good strategy.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
So by acknowledging the tax inspector's expertise,
Right.
he shifted the focus away from the conflict
Right.
and created this more collaborative atmosphere.
Right. Like, hey, we're in this together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the result was that the tax inspector, who had initially been, quite rigid
Right.
and unyielding,
Yeah.
he softened his stance
Okay.
and was much more willing to work with the guy.
Wow.
So it's a reminder that sometimes
Yeah.
the best way to win someone over
Right.
is to simply make them feel
Yeah.
heard and respected,
Right.
even if you don't necessarily agree
Right.
with their point of view.
It can be tough.
It can be tough, but
Yeah. But it's important.
it's important, yeah.
I love how Carnegie illustrates this point with a story
Okay.
about a car dealership owner
Okay.
who had this unique way
Okay.
of dealing with angry customers.
Oh.
So instead of arguing with them,
Yeah.
he would disarm them by actually taking responsibility
Oh, well.
for any mistakes
Okay.
the dealership might have made.
Okay.
So he'd say something like, "Our dealership has made so many mistakes
Okay.
that I am frequently ashamed.
Wow.
We may have erred in your case. Tell me about it."
Wow. Talk about taking the wind out of their sails.
Right.
Yeah.
I bet that approach just made those customers feel heard,
Right.
validated,
Yeah.
which probably made them much more open to finding a solution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about acknowledging their feelings
Right.
and showing empathy,
Right.
even when they're upset.
Yeah.
And this leads us to another really crucial principle,
Okay.
which is if you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically.
This one takes a lot of courage.
It does.
It does.
It does.
Yeah.
It's about swallowing our pride
Right.
and owning up to our mistakes.
Yeah.
But I can see how it would be incredibly effective.
It's powerful.
It is powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. It takes humility,
Mm-hmm.
but it can be a real game changer.
Okay.
Yeah. Carnegie believes that admitting our wrongs quickly and
Right.
really clears the air and allows us to move forward
Right.
in a more positive way.
In a healthier way.
Yeah. And he shares this example of a salesman
Okay.
who discovered a minor error in a contract.
Oh, no.
I know, right?
Yeah, that's everyone's worst nightmare.
After it had already been signed.
Oh, no, even worse.
Even worse.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to downplay the mistake
Right.
or shift the blame,
Yeah.
he immediately contacted the client,
Okay.
apologized profusely,
Good.
and offered to rectify the situation.
Good for him.
Yeah.
I bet the client really appreciated that.
He did.
Yeah.
He was so impressed by the salesman's integrity
Right.
that he ended up giving him another commission.
Wow.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. So it actually worked in his favor.
It worked in his favor.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show that
Yeah.
sometimes admitting our faults can actually strengthen a relationship
Right.
and build trust.
Right. Because it shows you're human.
Exactly.
Yeah. You make mistakes.
We all make mistakes.
And it's how you deal with them
No,
that
no, no.
matters.
It's how we handle them
Yeah.
that matters.
And this principle isn't just about business.
Right.
It applies to all areas of our lives.
It does.
Right.
And Carnegie tells this really personal story
Okay.
about a father who had this really strained relationship with his son,
Okay.
and they hadn't spoken for years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the father just blamed his son
Oh.
for the estrangement.
That's heartbreaking.
It is.
Yeah.
So how did he apply this principle
Yeah.
of admitting his wrongs?
Yeah.
Well, after taking Carnegie's course,
Yeah.
the father had this really profound realization.
Okay.
He realized that he was the one
Wow.
who had been wrong all along.
Wow.
He had failed to see things from his son's perspective,
Right.
and he had been too quick to judge.
Yeah. We all do that.
We all do that.
Yeah.
So it was this really,
Yeah.
painful but also liberating realization.
Right.
So he decided to swallow his pride, reach out to his sons,
Oh, good.
and apologize sincerely
Good for him.
for his mistakes.
Yeah.
And guess what? It led to a reconciliation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were able to rebuild their relationship.
That's beautiful.
And the father finally got to meet his grandchildren.
Oh, that's a beautiful story.
Isn't it?
It really highlights the transformative power of humility
Yeah.
and, taking responsibility for our actions.
Taking ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all these principles we've been discussing
Yeah.
about avoiding arguments,
Yeah.
showing respect,
Right.
and admitting our wrongs.
Mm-hmm.
They all kind of point to a greater theme, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
They all contribute to creating this atmosphere
Right.
of mutual respect and understanding.
But it's like setting the stage
it is
Yeah.
setting the stage.
for a healthy interaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that foundation is so crucial
Right.
for, this next principle,
Okay.
which is deceptively simple.
Okay, what is it?
Begin in a friendly way.
This seems so obvious.
It seems so obvious.
But I know I've often just fumbled in those initial interactions,
Right.
especially if I'm stressed or anxious.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
friendliness muscle just gets all tense.
I know we've all been there,
Yeah.
but think about it.
Yeah.
When someone approaches us
Yeah.
with warmth and friendliness,
Right.
we're so much more likely to be receptive
Right.
to what they have to say.
It's like disarming someone with a smile.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It sets a completely different tone for the interaction.
Yeah.
And Carnegie tells this great story
Okay.
about these two boys who were building a fire in a park,
Okay.
which was against the rules. I know.
Yeah.
So this policeman approaches them,
Okay.
ready to, scold them.
Right.
Yeah.
These poor kids.
But instead of yelling at them,
Yeah.
he takes this completely different approach.
Okay.
He actually reminisces about building fires as a boy himself.
Oh, wow.
Right.
That's clever.
And he acknowledges
Yeah.
their desire to, have some fun. But then he gently explains
Yeah.
why it's dangerous to build a fire in the park.
Right.
And he even offers them an alternative,
Oh.
suggesting they build their fire in a nearby sandpit
Okay.
where it wouldn't, cause any harm.
Wow, that's such a brilliant example of
So,
how a friendly approach
yeah,
can just be so much more effective
right.
than harshness or force.
Yeah, it's like meeting them where they are
Right.
and understanding their perspective
Yeah.
and then, guiding them
Right.
towards a better solution.
Did the boys listen to him?
They did.
I'd for them.
They were completely won over
Yeah.
by his kindness and understanding.
Yeah, sometimes I think we forget that people actually want to do good.
They do.
They just need to be shown
Right.
the right way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this principle isn't just about
Mhm.
dealing with children.
Right.
It could be really powerful in all sorts of situations,
Okay, like what?
even high-stakes ones.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, one of the most famous examples Carnegie uses
Okay.
is John D. Rockefeller Jr.'s handling of a strike
Okay.
at a Colorado coal mine.
Wow, that's high stakes?
That's high stakes.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the situation was incredibly tense.
Right.
The miners were angry,
Yeah.
and Rockefeller, representing the company,
Right.
was their target.
Yeah.
But instead of taking like an adversarial approach,
Right.
he decided to try and win them over to his side.
Wow, that's a bold move.
It is a bold move.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did he do it?
Yeah.
Well, he spent weeks
Okay.
getting to know the miners,
Wow, okay.
listening to their grievances.
So he really went in there,
Yeah,
boots on the ground.
boots on the ground.
Yeah.
And showing genuine concern for their well-being.
That's huge.
Right.
Yeah, because they probably felt like no one cared.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then he addressed them in this speech
Okay.
that is considered a masterpiece of persuasion.
Okay.
And he started by acknowledging his own position, saying, since this is a meeting of the officers of the company
Yeah.
and the representatives of the employees,
Mm-hmm.
it is only by your courtesy that I am here.
Yeah.
For I am not so fortunate as to be either one or the other.
Oh, I love that.
Right.
Yeah, he's establishing common ground right from the start.
Right from the
I
start.
think it's brilliant.
It is.
Yeah.
And then he went on to,
Yeah.
highlight their shared interests.
Okay.
And he emphasized his desire
Yeah.
to work together to find a solution.
Right.
And he presented facts calmly.
Okay.
And he appealed to their sense of fairness and reason.
Right. So he really laid it all out.
He laid it all out.
Yeah.
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 And what was the result?
Well, the miners were completely won over.
Wow.
They went back to work without another word about the wage increase
Wow.
that they had been
Yeah.
so fiercely fighting for,
That's an incredible story.
isn't it?
Yeah. It really highlights the power of starting with friendliness.
And genuine concern.
Genuine concern, yeah.
It can really just defuse
He can.
even the most heated situations
Yeah.
and create the space for a more positive outcome.
Absolutely.
This leads us to another fascinating principle,
Okay.
and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one.
What is it?
Get the other person saying yes, yes, immediately.
Ah, yes. This principle is all about
Okay.
creating momentum towards agreement,
Okay.
right? It's about finding points of common ground
Okay.
and getting the other person in a yes mindset.
So it's not about like manipulating someone
No.
into agreeing to something they don't want,
Right.
but rather about
Yeah.
creating a positive flow in the conversation.
Exactly.
Right.
And Carnegie shares this story of this guy
Okay.
who wanted to get his rent reduced.
Okay.
And he knew his landlord was notoriously difficult,
Oh, no.
I know.
Yeah.
but he decided to try a different approach.
Okay.
So he wrote a letter to his landlord,
Okay.
thanking him for being a fair and reasonable man.
Oh, wow. Okay, so he started off with a compliment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he went on to list the advantages
Yeah.
for the landlord
Okay.
if he were to reduce the rent.
Oh, I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So he was essentially framing the request
Yeah.
in a way that highlighted the landlord's own best interests.
Right. He's appealing to his self-interest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Did it work?
It did.
What?
The landlord agreed to reduce the rent.
Wow.
Isn't that great?
That's amazing.
So by leading the landlord
Yeah.
to a place of agreement, point by point,
Yeah.
he skillfully persuaded him to say yes to his request.
That's such a great example
It is.
of how we can use this principle
Yeah.
to frame our requests
Right.
in a way that resonates
Yeah.
with the other person's own desires and goals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's very clever.
It's a very clever strategy, and it connects so nicely
Okay.
with this next principle,
What is it?
which is all about, giving the other person space to express themselves.
Okay.
Let the other person do a great deal of the talking.
Oh, this one is huge.
This one is huge.
Yeah, this is so important.
It is so important.
Yeah, and I think so many people just talk over each other.
I know.
Yeah.
Right?
No one's actually listening.
And this principle really plays on our natural inclination
Right.
to talk about ourselves.
Right. We all want to talk about ourselves.
We do.
Yeah.
So by encouraging the other person to talk,
Right.
we not only make them feel heard and understood,
Right.
but we also gather
Yeah.
really valuable information.
Right. It's like
Yeah.
you're gathering intel.
You are disguised as good listening.
Yeah.
Right.
I love it.
Carnegie tells this story
Okay.
about this customer who was furious
Yeah.
about a billing error
Okay.
and went to the manager's office ready to explode.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, he was really upset.
Yeah.
But the manager, instead of interrupting or defending himself,
Okay.
just listened patiently.
Wow, good for him.
Yeah, he let the customer vent
Right.
all of his frustrations,
Right.
acknowledged his feelings,
Yeah.
and expressed, understanding.
Right. That probably just had a very calming effect.
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the time he'd gotten everything off his chest,
Yeah.
he was probably much more
Yeah,
receptive to reason.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And so the manager was then able to
Yeah.
calmly explain the situation,
Right.
apologize for the error,
Yeah.
and assure the customer it would be corrected.
Right.
And the customer,
Yeah.
disarmed by the manager's attentiveness and respect,
Right.
left satisfied.
It's a great reminder that sometimes the best way to handle a difficult situation
Yeah.
is to simply listen
Without judgment.
without interruption
Yeah,
and just let the other person fully express themselves.
exactly.
It's amazing how powerful that can be.
It really is. And this principle, connects beautifully
Okay.
with this next one,
What is it?
which is all about making the other person
Yeah.
feel like they own the solution.
Oh, I love this one.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Let the other person feel that the idea is his or hers.
This is about making the other person feel like they've come up with the idea themselves.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're much more likely
You are.
to embrace an idea
Yeah.
if we feel like it's our own.
If it's our own.
Yeah.
And Carnegie tells this story about a manager
Okay.
who was struggling to get his team
Okay.
to buy into this new initiative.
I bet that's a challenge.
It is a common challenge.
Yeah.
Right?
For managers.
For managers, yeah.
Yeah.
So instead of simply presenting the plan
Right.
and expecting his team to fall in line,
Yeah.
this manager did something different.
What did he do?
He gathered his team together
Okay.
and he presented them with the problem.
Oh, wow.
And then he challenged them to come up with solutions.
That's such a good way
Isn't it?
to get people engaged and invested.
It is.
Yeah.
So the team,
Yeah.
energized by the opportunity to contribute,
Right.
they brainstormed ideas,
Yeah.
debated approaches,
Right.
and ultimately came up with a plan.
Yeah.
It was even better
Oh, wow.
than the manager's original vision.
Wow. I bet they were so thrilled to be a part of that.
They were.
Yeah.
And because they felt like they
Yeah.
had ownership of the plan
Right. Is their baby.
as their baby.
Yeah.
They were so enthusiastic about
Yeah.
implementing it.
Right. It was no longer the manager's plan.
It was their plan.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so powerful.
It is such a powerful example.
The, collaboration.
Right.
Really tapping into the
Yeah.
collective wisdom and creativity of a group. Yeah.
And it all leads back
Yeah.
to that, fundamental principle we discussed earlier.
What's that?
Try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view.
This is truly the golden rule of human relations, isn't it?
It is.
It's about stepping into the other person's shoes,
Yeah.
understanding their perspective,
Okay.
and empathizing with their feelings.
Exactly.
And it's not about pretending to agree with them.
No.
Right.
No.
But it's about making a genuine effort
Yeah.
to understand their world.
Right.
And Carnegie uses this example of a husband
Okay.
who was constantly criticizing his wife
Okay.
for spending too much time gardening.
Okay.
He thought it was a waste of time,
Oh, no.
but he never stopped to consider
Yeah.
why she enjoyed it so much.
Right.
So after taking Carnegie's course,
Yeah.
he decided to join his wife in the garden
Oh, good for him.
and actually participate.
Oh, I love that.
And to his surprise,
Yeah.
he discovered that gardening was actually
Yeah.
a deeply meaningful activity
Yeah.
for his wife.
Right.
It probably brought her joy, peace,
Right.
a sense of
A
accomplishment.
sense of accomplishment. Yeah.
Right. It was probably very meditative for her.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So by making an effort
Yeah.
to see things from her perspective,
Right.
he was able to connect with her on this deeper level
Right. And appreciate her passion.
and appreciate her passion. Yeah.
It's a great reminder that everyone has their own
Yeah.
unique perspective.
Unique perspective
Right.
shaped by their experiences, their values, their beliefs.
Right.
And when we take the time
Yeah.
to understand those perspectives,
Yeah.
we open ourselves up
Right.
to a much richer and more meaningful
Yeah.
experience of the world.
This whole section on winning people to our way of thinking,
Yeah.
it's really about,
Right.
moving away from
Yep.
force manipulation or coercion
Right.
and embracing a more collaborative and empathetic
Yeah.
approach. Right.
Yeah.
It's about understanding that true influence comes
Yeah.
from building
Yeah.
genuine connections
Genuine connections.
based on mutual respect and understanding.
Understanding that.
Okay, so we've covered like the fundamentals of, building relationships and winning people to your way of thinking.
Right.
But now I'm curious about how we can use these principles
Yeah.
to become more effective leaders.
Okay.
Like, how can we inspire others without coming across as like bossy
Right.
or overbearing?
That's a great question. And it's about shifting from, simply trying to get people to do what you want
Yeah.
to inspiring them to want to do it themselves.
Right.
And that's where this next principle comes in.
Okay.
Arousing the other person an eager want.
Oh, I love that. An
Okay.
eager one. It just sounds so much more appealing than just like
Right.
telling someone what to do.
Yeah, no one wants to be told what to do.
Right, exactly.
So how do we actually awaken that eager want in someone else?
Yeah, that's the question.
Well, it all starts with, understanding their motivation.
Oh.
What are their goals? What do they truly value?
Right.
What are their dreams and aspirations?
So it's about putting ourselves in their shoes again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Seeing the world through their lens.
Right.
Yeah, and Carnegie tells this really poignant story
Okay.
about a father who was struggling to connect with his son.
Okay.
And the son was, withdrawn and uncommunicative, pushing his father away.
Okay.
And the father kept trying to engage him in conversations
Yeah.
about his own interests.
Right.
But the son just remained distant.
Oh, I can relate to that.
Right.
I sometimes find myself talking at people instead of with them.
Exactly.
It's so easy to fall into that trap.
Yeah.
Right.
So in this story, the father eventually realized he was going about it all wrong.
Okay.
Instead of trying to impose his own interests on his son,
Right.
he decided to focus on what the boy was passionate about.
Okay.
And the son loved to build things. So the father started, showing genuine interest in his projects.
Oh, nice.
Offering to help, asking him questions.
Yeah.
And that really opened up the lines of communication.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the son's walls came down.
Right.
He started sharing his ideas,
Yeah.
asking for advice, and their relationship blossomed.
Oh, that's awesome.
All because the father learned to speak the language
Right.
of his son's eager want.
That's such a powerful example. I think we can all learn from that, right?
We can.
Yeah.
It's not about forcing our own agenda.
Right.
It's about tapping into what naturally motivates the other person.
And it reminds me of that story that Carnegie tells about the design studio that was trying to like land a new client.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
The client was hesitant.
Right?
Unsure she wanted to commit to the project.
Okay.
But instead of, bombarding her with a sales pitch,
Yeah.
the studio owner asked her this simple yet profound question.
Oh, what was it?
He said, "What's your vision for this project? What are you hoping to achieve?"
Oh, I love that.
Right.
It just shifts the focus away from the studio's capabilities and onto the client's desires.
Exactly.
It's brilliant.
And that question really unlocked the client's eager want.
Right.
She started talking about her dreams for the project, her goals, her aspirations.
Yeah.
And as she spoke, her enthusiasm grew.
Right.
And the studio owner just listened attentively,
Yeah.
mirroring her excitement.
So smart.
Right.
Yeah.
And by the end of the conversation,
Yeah.
she was convinced that this studio was the perfect partner to
Right.
bring her vision to life.
Yeah. She felt seen and heard and understood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because he had given her this hard sell.
Right.
It was because he had listened to her,
Right.
understood her vision,
And tapped into.
and tapped into her eager want.
Yeah.
So it's just this really powerful reminder that sometimes the most persuasive approach is simply to ask the right questions.
Right.
And listen deeply.
This leads us to another principle
Okay.
that I find really intriguing.
What is it?
Give the other person a fine reputation to live up to.
Yes. This principle speaks to the power of positive expectations.
Okay.
And Carnegie argues that people often rise to meet the expectations
Right.
that we set for them.
Yeah, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy almost.
It is.
Right.
Yeah, especially when those expectations are high.
Right. You're giving them a blueprint for success.
Exactly.
And believing in their ability to achieve it.
Right.
Yeah.
And he tells this really heartwarming story
Okay.
about this teacher
Okay.
who noticed this spark of potential
Okay.
in this really shy, quiet student named Krrish.
Okay.
And Krrish was diligent,
Okay.
but he lacked confidence.
Okay.
He doubted his own abilities.
Oh, we've all felt that way.
We have.
At some point.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we're not good enough,
Right.
or smart enough, or talented enough.
Yeah, like we're not worthy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this teacher saw something special in Krrish.
Oh, okay.
So one day he approached him
Yeah.
and asked if he'd like to join the advanced class,
Oh, wow.
which was, considered a privilege,
Much like the top tier.
the top tier.
Yeah.
And Krrish was stunned.
Yeah.
He was like, "Who, me, Mr. Rowland?
Hmm.
Am I good enough?"
Oh, my gosh.
And the teacher replied without hesitation,
Yeah.
"Yes, Krrish, you are good enough."
Wow.
And those words,
Yeah.
spoken with such sincerity and conviction,
Right.
just gave Krrish the confidence
Yeah.
he needed to believe in himself.
Yeah. It's so powerful.
It is.
What we say to people,
It is.
especially young people. It's
Yeah,
huge.
it makes such a difference.
Yeah.
So Krrish joined the advanced class and absolutely thrived.
Oh, good for him.
I know, it's a beautiful reminder that
Yeah.
sometimes all it takes
Yeah.
is a little faith and encouragement
Yeah. To unlock someone's potential.
to unlock someone's potential. Yeah.
This idea of setting high expectations
Yeah.
is also illustrated in the story about a print shop owner
Oh.
who had this employee
Okay.
with a lot of potential,
Wow.
but a really bad attitude.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and his supervisor was ready to fire him.
Okay.
But the owner decided to try a different approach.
Okay.
He noticed that the employee had, recently produced
Yeah.
some really high quality work. So
Huh.
he went to the print shop
Yeah.
and personally complimented him,
Oh, wow.
highlighting the quality of his work
Okay.
and explaining, why it was so impressive.
Wow. So instead of focusing on his negative attitude,
Right.
he chose to emphasize his strengths.
Right. And acknowledge his accomplishment.
Exactly.
And what happened.
Well, the employee was completely transformed by this sincere praise.
Yeah.
Yeah. He began to take pride in his work.
Right.
His attitude improved, and he became, a much more valuable member of the team.
It's a reminder that sometimes the
Yeah.
best way to motivate someone
Yeah.
is to catch them doing something right
Right.
and acknowledge it specifically and genuinely.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I've noticed that in my own life. You
Yeah.
know, when people
Yeah.
point out my strengths,
Mm-hmm.
it makes me want to work even harder
Right.
to live up to those expectations.
To live up to those expectations. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that leads us
Okay.
in another really powerful principle,
Okay.
which is use encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
Make the fault seem easy to correct.
I love that.
Right.
Yeah, it's about focusing on solutions, not problems.
Like
It's about inspiring hope,
Right.
not despair.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Carnegie argues that people are much more likely to change their behavior
Right.
if they believe it's possible
Yeah.
and within their reach.
Right.
And he uses the example of a piano teacher
Okay.
who had a student with these really long, beautifully manicured fingernails.
Okay.
And the nails were interfering with her playing.
Oh, no.
But the teacher knew
Yeah.
how much pride the student took in her nails.
Right.
So it was a very delicate situation.
Yeah.
So instead of demanding that she cut them,
Right.
the teacher took a more subtle approach.
Yeah.
She complimented the student
Okay.
on her beautiful nails,
Okay.
acknowledging that it would be a sacrifice to cut them.
Right. Like you're validating her feelings.
Exactly.
And showing respect for
Yeah.
her choices.
Yeah. And then she gently suggested
Okay.
that trimming her nails might actually help her play the piano
Okay.
more easily and skillfully.
Right. So she framed it as an opportunity for improvement,
Exactly.
not a criticism.
Not a criticism.
Yeah.
And what happened?
Well, the student, motivated by the belief that she could enhance her playing,
Right.
decided to cut her nails
Oh, wow.
on her own.
Just like that.
Just like that.
That's incredible. It's a great example of how we can encourage positive change
Yeah.
without resorting to, force or shame.
This principle reminds me of that story
Yeah.
about the Army Reserve sergeant
Okay.
who was trying to encourage his recruits to get regulation haircuts.
Oh, yeah.
And the reservists, really resented this rule.
Yeah.
They felt like it infringed on their individuality.
Right.
And the sergeant could have easily resorted to, barking orders.
Yeah.
But instead, he decided to make his point indirectly.
Okay.
Yeah, he addressed his troops saying, "Gentlemen, you are leaders. You will be most effective when you lead by example. You know what the Army regulations say about haircuts? I am going to get my hair cut today, although it is still much shorter than some of yours. You look at yourself in the mirror, and if you feel you need a haircut to be a good example, we'll arrange time for you to visit the post barbershop."
Oh, wow.
That's so clever, right?
That is so clever.
He appealed to their sense of leadership
Yeah.
and made it seem like getting a haircut was their own choice.
Exactly.
It's brilliant.
It is.
And did it work?
It did.
Really?
Yeah. The recruits, inspired by the belief that they could be these strong leaders,
Right.
started getting their hair cut.
Wow.
They were motivated not by fear of punishment,
Right.
but by the desire to excel.
That's incredible.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just a brilliant example
Yeah.
of how we can use encouragement
Right.
and positive framing
Right.
to inspire people to make changes
Right.
that they might otherwise resist.
Right.
It's about empowering them
Yes.
to make those choices for themselves.
This leads us to the final principle
Okay.
that we'll be discussing today.
Okay.
Make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest.
Ah, yes. This is all about
Okay.
creating win-win situations.
Okay.
It's about making sure that the other person
Yeah.
benefits from taking the action we're suggesting.
So it's not about manipulating them
Right.
into doing something
Yeah.
for our own benefit.
But rather about
Yeah.
finding a way to
Yeah.
align our request with their own
desires and goals.
desires and goals.
Exactly.
Carnegie tells this story
Okay.
about a manager who was tasked with cleaning out the stockroom.
Okay.
And instead of simply ordering his employee to do it,
Right.
he took a different approach.
Okay, what did he do?
He explained to the employee
Okay.
that some important customers were visiting the next day,
Okay.
and he wanted to impress them with a clean and organized stockroom.
So he framed it as an opportunity
Exactly.
to contribute to the company's success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the employee, motivated by the sense of purpose
Right.
and the potential to make a good impression,
Right.
happily took on the job.
Wow. Just like that.
Just like that.
He felt like a valued member of the team,
Exactly.
not just someone following orders.
Exactly. That's a
Yeah.
great example
It is.
of how we can motivate people by giving them that sense of ownership and purpose.
I also love that story
Yeah.
that Carnegie tells about
Yeah.
a young man who was trying to get a job.
Okay.
And he had sent his resume to several companies,
Mm-hmm.
but this one company
Yeah.
really stood out
Okay.
in how they approached him.
Okay.
So instead of, trying to sell him on the company,
Right.
the recruiter took the time to really get to know him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He asked him about his goals, his interests, his aspirations.
Well, so he was trying to understand
Yeah.
what motivated him
Right.
and what he was looking for in a career.
Yeah. And then what did he do?
Well, then he explains
Yeah.
how the company's mission and values
Hey.
aligned with the young man's own aspirations.
Oh, wow.
And the young man just felt
Yeah.
so seen
Yeah.
and understood
Like he mattered.
he mattered.
Yeah.
He felt that his contributions would be valued
Right.
and that he would have the opportunity to grow and develop
Right.
within the company.
Right. And so did he take the job?
He did. He was so eager to join the team.
Wow.
And it wasn't because he had been pressured.
Right.
It was because he felt this genuine connection
Right.
with the company's mission,
That's such a great example.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Of how we can make people happy about doing the thing we suggest
Right.
by aligning it with their own values and goals.
That's not about manipulation.
It's not about manipulation.
It's about finding that sweet spot
It is.
where our needs and their needs intersect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what this entire deep dive into
Yeah.
how to win friends and influence people
Yeah.
has been about.
Yeah.
It's about understanding human nature,
Right.
tapping into our shared desires,
Yeah.
and building relationships
Right.
based on mutual respect and understanding.
These principles are just
Yeah.
so timeless and relevant.
They are.
It's about so much more
Yeah.
than just getting what we want.
It is.
It's about becoming better communicators.
Yeah.
Better leaders.
Yeah.
And ultimately, better human beings.
Better human beings, exactly.
Yeah, and Dale Carnegie himself said,
Yeah.
you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people
Yeah.
than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you.
That is so true.
I know, right?
It's all about shifting that focus
Yeah.
outward.
Yeah. I think we can all benefit from
Yeah,
taking that advice to heart.
for sure.
I'm like walking away from this conversation with like a renewed appreciation for the
Hmm.
power of genuine connection
Right.
and like a whole toolkit of strategies
Hmm.
for building stronger, more meaningful relationships.
That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
And remember, these principles are meant to be practiced
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
applied in real life.
Right.
So as you go about your day-to-day,
Yeah.
think about how you can use these insights
Yeah.
to enhance your interactions with others.
I love that. Yeah. That's a great challenge for us all to
Mhm.
think about like a relationship in our life
Yeah,
where we could apply one of these principles.
right.
And what small step could we take today
Yeah,
to make that relationship even stronger?
that's a great question.
Yeah, thanks for joining us
Yeah.
on this deep dive
Yeah,
into how to win friends and influence people.
it's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful and inspiring.
I hope so too.
Until next time,
Yeah,
keep learning,
keep rowing
keep growing.
and keep connecting with those around you
Yes,
in a meaningful way.
in a meaningful way.